Welcome everyone to a very sunny Guangzhou, where we've been invited by GAC to come and check out some of their latest cars. Now this is of course a group test drive session, so there's a lot of cars under the GAC stable for us to check out. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to be focusing on two cars today, which are the two SUVs you see behind me. Let's go and check them out. Now the reason we'll be focusing on these two cars today is because these are the two cars that will kickstart GAC's local production operations in Malaysia. On the right we have the GS3 Emzoom, which is a B-segment SUV that will be rivaling the likes of the Proton X50 and the Honda HR-V. And on the left we have the GAC Emkoo, which is a C-segment SUV rivaling the likes of the Proton X70 and the Honda CR-V. The main highlight for these two cars is of course their design, and I think it's really highlighted on the GS3 Emzoom. You get all of these funky angles and sharp lines all over the exterior, and I think with this range-topping R-style design package, it really just brings out the whole youthfulness of the GAC's latest design language, especially with the use of all these little orange highlights all around the exterior and interior. In front here, the aggressive styling is highlighted by this very wide grille with a triangular motif, which is the same shape that you'll find all throughout the entire exterior, including the daytime running lights up there on the corners, as well as even the small air intakes on the front bumpers. The sharp angles design motif is repeated all throughout the entire exterior, as you can see on the small pattern at the side doors over here, on the C-pillars at the back, and even at the back here, the tail lights, you also get this very three-dimensional shape with, of course, the triangle motif again. Now, because this is the range-topping R-style variant, you also get this very aggressive-looking, very sporty roof spoiler with a third braking light that looks like it almost came out of a race car. And speaking of race car, just check out how aggressive this diffuser element looks with that two massive exhaust outlets in the middle. How cool is that? Why do you still need to hide your exhaust outlets when you can display them loud and proud like this? Now this car may look quite petite on first glance, but those wheels there, they're actually 19 inches in size, and this is actually one of the largest B-segment SUVs out there in the market, bigger than even the Chery Omoda 5. In terms of length, this car here actually measures some 4,410mm long, which is basically the longest in the segment, and the wheelbase itself is also about 2,650mm if I'm not mistaken. So what that means is that the interior space here should be quite decent. Now moving on to the GAC Emkoo. Now even these two cars share a very similar design language. The end product here actually looks very different to the GS3 Emzoom that we just saw. This car here is a lot more mature, and even though it's still futuristic, it's also a lot more classier. There's not as many sharp lines or funky angles, but there's still a lot of highlights that you can pick out, including this 3D vertical tail lights, the very aggressive looking roof spoiler with of course a very unique third braking light up here, the very sporty looking bumpers with two full air outlets on the sides. The taillights help shape the entire silhouette of this C-segment SUV, and the entire car just looks very classy but also still very futuristic at the same time. As for the front, it doesn't have the same aggressive styling as its younger brother over there, but it still has a very recognizable, very shouty front face with a unique frameless grille design and a very sharp looking headlights with a very familiar shape. And when both of these cars come over to Malaysia, these two will definitely be some of the most stylish looking, most eye-catching SUVs on the roads. What do you think? For how loud its exterior design is, the cabin of the GS3 Emzoom is actually rather simple. You have a unique blue-coloured dashboard wrapped in soft-touch materials to match the two-tone leather upholstery, a unique aircon vent design with ambient lighting surrounds, a crystal gear shift lever on the center console, and a huge panoramic sunroof above your head. But that's really all of the flashy items inside. Otherwise, the rest of the cabin is fairly standard, with things like a 7-inch digital instrument cluster, a 10.25-inch infotainment display at the center of the dashboard which supports wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto connectivity, a bank of buttons for the climate controls, and a powered driver's seat. But the highlight of the GS3's cabin isn't so much its equipment but rather its space. Because of its long wheelbase, you get quite a lot of legroom in the rear seats, and it's helped by the completely flat floor at the back. You also get a pretty sizable rear boot space, and the rear seats actually fold down flush with the boot floor, so you can turn the car into a 1.8 meter long bed, or so GAC says. As for the Emkoo, well, the design inside here is also more utilitarian, more grown up. You still get the same 7-inch digital instrument cluster up in front, but the center screen here looks to be way bigger, measuring about 15 inches I believe. In terms of design language, you get this sort of tubular motif all around the interior, including the door handles. As with all Chinese cars these days, almost everything is controlled directly through the screen itself, but uniquely on the Emkoo, you get this giant knob on the side, which actually adjusts the temperature of the climate control. Space in the Emkoo is also pretty good, and it also gets the flat floor at the back, so your unfortunate middle passenger can sit in more comfort, especially since it's also one of the widest car in the segment, which means wider shoulder room. But that's enough of just looking at the cars, let's go and drive them. Alright, first up we'll be testing the GS3 Emzoom on a very short handling course. Ready to go? 3, 2, 1, full throttle! The 1.5-litre turbocharged engine here makes 177 horsepower and 270 Nm of torque, which is one of the highest in the segment, and as you can hear from the tyres wheels, it does feel pretty nippy. So the steering is definitely on the lighter side, as is the suspension, but it's still quite manageable. Body roll is fairly well managed, and on our very short test drive, it does ride pretty well too, and seem to be quite a comfort-forward driving experience as you'd expect in a compact crossover. So power-wise, it's actually not bad, but the 7-speed wet dual clutch transmission is a bit like the Proton X50s, where it's actually a little bit slower, a little bit more like a normal automatic gearbox. But aside from that, power-wise, it's actually pretty good. And the coolest part is, I don't know if you can hear it, but there's some kind of a turbo spooling sound on a 1.5 turbocharged engine. Pretty cool. Alright, now for the Emkoo, which is a hybrid. Ooh, wheel spin. It's way more powerful, definitely. A lot of understeer actually. But it's a soft suspension, but it still manages quite well. It's a very eager powertrain. Not bad for a C-segment SUV. Now we still don't know if GAC is planning on bringing in the hybrid engine into Malaysia. Over in the Philippines, the Emkoo is only available in the same 1.5-litre engine as the GS3. But if you ask us, we obviously would much rather have the hybrid here. And of course, the test drives on both of these cars were really short, so we couldn't have experienced too much more than this. But what do you think of these two cars so far? Let us know in the comments down below. Oh, and before we go, the company also told us that we may perhaps see a very special GAC sedan on our roads soon. I wonder what could it possibly be.